When I look back at the night that changed my life, it still feels like a movie I accidentally stumbled into. My name is Michael Turner. I'm 42 years old, married for nearly 15 years to my wife, Emily. We built a simple but beautiful life together. Emily is warm, caring, and practical, the kind of woman who lights up a room not because she's flashy, but because her presence feels like home. Together we have 2 kids, Adam and Lily, who keep us on our toes and remind us daily why family matters most. Life, however, has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. I had always thought that our marriage was unshakable. But one evening in the kitchen, when Emily's younger sister walked in, everything I thought I knew about my life shifted in a way I never saw coming. It all started on a Saturday night. Emily had invited her younger sister, Jessica, over for dinner. Jessica was 30, single, and full of energy that often made me feel both tired and alive at the same time. Where Emily was grounded and thoughtful, Jessica was spontaneous and unpredictable. She had a way of speaking her mind, sometimes too freely, but underneath her boldness was a woman who deeply cared about family. That evening, Emily was upstairs putting the kids to bed while I cleaned up the kitchen after dinner. The clinking of plates, the sound of running water, and the faint laughter of the children drifting down from upstairs created a peaceful atmosphere. I was stacking dishes into the dishwasher when I heard footsteps behind me. It was Jessica. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, watching me. "You're always in here cleaning up," she said with a little smile. "You know, most guys would just leave the mess for my sister." I laughed. "Well, Emily deserves a break. She's been on her feet all day. Besides, I don't mind. Keeps me busy." Jessica walked into the kitchen and sat on one of the stools near the counter. She rested her chin on her hand, her eyes studying me in a way that felt almost too direct. "You're a good man, Michael. My sister's lucky." Her words were simple, but there was something about the way she said them that made me pause. Compliments weren't unusual coming from Jessica, but this one carried a weight I couldn't quite place. I shrugged, trying to shake it off. "Well, I'm the lucky one. Emily puts up with me, after all." Jessica laughed, but then her smile softened. "You know, I've always admired how you 2 make it work. Not every marriage does. Not every man sticks around and does the small things. You're different." For a moment, silence filled the kitchen. I could feel her eyes on me, and it made me uncomfortable in a way I didn't want to admit. I turned back to the dishes, focusing on the soap bubbles. Then Jessica spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "Can I tell you something? Something I probably shouldn't." I froze. My instincts told me this was the kind of moment that could change the course of everything. "Sure," I said cautiously. Jessica sighed, looking down at her hands before meeting my eyes again. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever find what you and Emily have. Real love. Someone who actually shows up, not just says they will. You don't know how rare that is." Her honesty caught me off guard. Jessica was usually playful, sometimes even sarcastic, but this was different. Vulnerable. Real. I put down the dish towel and leaned against the counter. "You will. You can't force it. It happens when you least expect it." That's how it was with Emily. I wasn't looking for someone serious at the time, but then she walked into my life and everything changed. Jessica nodded slowly. "I want that." More than I let on. Her eyes lingered on mine, and for a split second, the room felt charged with something unspoken. Just then, we heard Emily's footsteps on the stairs, and the moment broke. Jessica quickly looked away, picking at her fingernails as if nothing had happened. Emily entered the kitchen, smiling, completely unaware of the undercurrent between us. That night, after Jessica left, I couldn't stop thinking about the look in her eyes. It wasn't attraction in the usual sense. It was longing, not for me necessarily, but for what I represented. For the stability, the love, the security she hadn't found in her own life. Days turned into weeks, and Jessica started visiting more often. Sometimes she'd come over for dinner, sometimes just to hang out with the kids. And every time, there were moments, small, fleeting, but undeniable, where I felt her searching for something in me. And every time, I had to remind myself of who I was: a husband, a father, a man committed to his family. The turning point came one rainy evening. Emily had gone out to meet a friend, and Jessica dropped by unexpectedly with takeout. The kids were already in bed, so it was just the two of us in the kitchen again. We sat across from each other at the counter, the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Jessica talked about her job, her friends, the ups and downs of being single in her 30s. At one point, she grew quiet and said, "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like maybe things could have gone differently?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I thought about it, then shook my head. Honestly?
No.
I mean, sure, life has its what-ifs, but I wouldn't trade this for anything. Not Emily, not the kids, not even the chaos. Jessica smiled faintly. I envy that certainty. I've never had it. She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. But if I ever find it, I hope it feels like this. For a heartbeat, we just looked at each other. And in that instant, I realized something. Jessica didn't want me. She wanted what I had with Emily. She wanted proof that love like ours was still possible. That realization changed everything. From that night on, instead of feeling uneasy around Jessica, I felt protective. I became more intentional about the way I spoke to her, careful to draw boundaries, but also encouraging her to believe in love again. I started introducing her to some of my friends, guys I knew were good, steady men. I listened when she needed to vent, but I never let the line blur again. Eventually, Jessica did meet someone. His name was Daniel, and he was kind, genuine, and patient. The first time she brought him over, I could see a new light in her eyes, the same light I once saw in Emily's when we first fell in love. Years later, as I stood at Jessica's wedding, giving a toast alongside Emily, I thought back to that night in the kitchen. The night when everything could have gone wrong, but instead went right. The night when temptation, longing, and vulnerability collided, but love, family, and loyalty won. Jessica found her own happiness, and our family grew stronger because we faced that moment honestly. And I learned something important. Sometimes, life tests us not with big dramatic choices, but with quiet, ordinary moments in a kitchen on a Saturday night. It's what we do in those moments that define who we are and who we become. When I look back now, I don't just remember the tension or the uncertainty. I remember the clarity, the choice to honor my vows, the chance to help someone I care about find her own path, and the deep, unshakable truth that love, when nurtured, really can withstand anything. And that's the story of how one night in the kitchen with my wife's sister changed everything. Not because it tore us apart, but because it reminded me why I chose Emily in the first place and why I'll keep choosing her.